Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we are going to be going over Level Up Expo 2023. This tournament is insanely top heavy. There's so many talented players here. Our top 16 seeds are Justice, Goblin, MVD, and Quandale at 13th. Luis, Chronos, Chase, and Wrath at 9th. 7th place is going to be Mars and Jackal. 5th place is going to be Salt 1 and Zomba. 4th place is going to be Cosmos. 3rd place Sonics. 2nd place Light. And 1st place Tweak. We're going to be going over a couple runs that I think could happen, how I think the top 16 will go, all that kind of stuff, and let's just get right into it. Now, on this side of the bracket, the first player I want to take a look at is going to be Andrik. He is someone with so much potential. He also just won MSM 0, which while it was a local, that tournament was way too stacked, and he got a bunch of good wins along the way. I think he is super promising as a player, one of the best Falcons in the world right now, and he has to play against Justice, which is a bit of a tough matchup for Falcon, though I do think it is doable. And then he goes into Tweak, which is like really hard. So I'm just going to say he maybe beats Justice, probably loses to Tweak though, but I think he can beat Justice. But once he gets into the loser side, I also think it is very promising because I think he has a pretty good shot versus Goblin. Andrik just hits you and explodes you. You need to be a perfect closer versus him. If you give him 1 inch, he will take a mile because his conversions are unreal. His knee is like insane. The amount of times he's able to land a knee out of seemingly nowhere, whether it's raw, off a down air, off a nair, off an up air, it is actually phenomenal. Andrik is an amazing player with so much potential. I think he could do some real damage in this bracket and probably break into that top 16. And our next player is going to be Dakpo. Now, Dakpo is a player that we've seen make some massive upsets before. I think he beat Gluttony at Genesis 7, I want to say. It was one of the older Genesis. He beat him and he pyramid schemed him in front of everyone. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So we know he has that dog in him, and I think he could make some waves this tournament because his bracket is really good, at least in terms of the matchup, because he has to go against Demon, which is a very good matchup for Diddy Kong. Bayonetta struggles heavily in that matchup. And then he goes against Cosmos. Same thing. Diddy Kong does very well against swords. Even though Aegis, I feel like, is one of the sword characters that does a little bit better versus Diddy, they still do struggle. And then if he does win that, which would be very tough, he would go into either Goblin or Frog, which again, two very favorable matchups for Diddy. That's either going to be a swordsman or it's going to be Bayonetta. I think Dakpo could go absolutely crazy this tournament. And then the loser side of the bracket, it's like he would go into Ven, which is probably a favorable matchup for Diddy. I don't really know how Zelda Diddy Kong would go, but I assume Diddy wins. And then this is probably going to be either Marth, Roy, or Kazuya. I'm not really sure who Krieg plays right now because he plays like 30 characters. I think more Marth recently, but point is, I think if Dakpo's going to make a run, it's probably going to be through the winner side. I think there's a pretty high chance. It's not going to be easy, of course, because these players are still incredible, but I think he is the caliber player to not only do it, but the matchups are also in his favor. So I'd have a big magnifying glass on Dakpo. Like, be sure to look out for him. But before we move on to the other side of the bracket, I do want to talk about a couple upsets that I think could happen going into top 16. We already talked about the Andrik one. I think that's a possibility. I also think Luis and Jackal is probably going to be the closest match out of literally any of these qualifiers because they are both such amazing players. And when either of them is playing with momentum, they get like 20 times player. Like, those are some players that when they are heated up, they just go absolutely crazy. So if both players have momentum, it's going to be insane. If none of them have momentum, it's going to be insane. If one of them has momentum, it's probably going to be a wash, to be honest, because again, they just go absolutely ridiculous when they have it. So I think this set could be an absolute banger. Have no idea who's going to win it. I think either choices are fine. Tweak Justice, probably Tweak wins that just because of how well he did last time. Like, Justice showed signs of light, of course, but I would favor Tweak here. Cosmos Goblin, same thing. I would favor Cosmos, but Goblin is one of those players who sometimes certain top players just get rocked by him. He just figures it out, so it's nothing. You can never count Goblin out. Now, Salt 1 Chronos is interesting because Salt 1 has an Apollo Kage problem. But I don't know if it's an Apollo Kage problem or a Snake problem because they are two very different playstyles of Snakes. And I do think Apollo Kage is still better for now. I think Chronos could get to that spot because he is incredible. So this matchup could honestly maybe be an upset for Chronos, but I still favor Salt 1, but I wouldn't be like super shocked if Chronos was able to pull that off. Now, in the loser side, you give Luis or Jackal versus Naito. This is going to be Kazuya, so it's really hard to predict. I think Luis is pretty good versus Kazuya, though, so I would favor him there. Justice Frog, I think that's a good matchup for Min-Min, but also Bayonetta can sometimes destroy Min-Min off stage, so maybe Frog takes it. Still would probably favor Justice. Also, it could be Demon as well. The Bayonetta's got to fight for it. Chronos Ven. Now, I'm pretty sure Ven is still Zelda. I don't really know that matchup, but I think Snake should just top tier Zelda, I assume, but I probably would favor Chronos. And then we already talked about Goblin and Andrik. I did like kind of make it one side. I think Goblin has a decent chance versus Andrik, but I still would probably favor Andrik going to that. But again, Goblin's one of those players that sometimes he just obliterates people, so it's going to be tough to call it. On the next side of bracket, the first player that I want to talk about is going to be Void, because this matchup between him and MVD is very interesting, because I think that the matchup does favor MVD. I think Sheik does struggle a little bit, just grenade combos are very easy to interrupt. It's hard to get Snake off of Cypher, and killing him is very difficult, whereas Snake can just kind of throw in an up tilt, and Sheik dies at like 6. But Void is one of those players that just plays so methodical around grenades, and the way he places his moves, he is very good versus Stick. It's a tough opponent. So I think this is a super possible match for Void. I do think it's honestly a bit of a tough role for MVD because, again, I just think Void's playstyle is very good versus Stick. Even though the match is in his favor, I think I do favor Void here. And then Light Void would be a pretty tough one just because they've played each other a decent amount. I don't know inside of bracket the last time they played, but outside of bracket, I know they play a decent amount. So this is one of those things where it's like, in bracket, things get way different when you just know each other's habits like that so well. So this could be closer than people I think would expect. Still would probably favor Light though, and then he would go into either Capitancito if he was supposed to beat MVD, or if he lost MVD, he'd go into Quandale. Now this is Steve Sheik, which is a very rough matchup, and I would still definitely favor Quandale here. But I think against Capitancito, he does have a decent chance. I don't know his matchup experience versus Me Gunner. That is kind of a matchup check, but you might just, again, be able to top player slash top character, like top tier character, Me Gunner. So it's definitely a possibility that Void could make it in the top 16. He's going to have to work pretty hard for it, but again, he plays Sheik. He kind of always has to work hard for everything. And the next player that I want to talk about is going to be Cryos. Now, there isn't any specific matchups that I think are super favorable for him to win. I just think he has so much potential. These Young League players are on something else. Whether it's Suinoko, Skittles, Toast, Cryos, Cyro, any of them could just go absolutely crazy, and I think this could be Kairos' tournament. He has to go against Sticky in the winner's side, which I think he has a shot against. I don't think it's an amazing matchup for Young League, but again, nothing's impossible. And then he goes against Sonics, which I say nothing's impossible. Maybe some things are, but again, it's ultimate. Anyone can win. It's just going to be very tough, especially considering how good Sonics has been doing lately. But then again, the loser side of bracket, not too bad either until he gets up to Wrath, which would be very difficult. Sonic is just a very good character, and those are two amazing players. But I think Kairos could potentially beat both those players. Like, he has that dog in him. He is very, very talented. I think this could be his breakout run, and I'm really excited to see if he can make it far in the bracket. Now, before we get into top 16, some possible upsets that could happen. I think Light MVD is going to be a close call. I would still favor Light. I think he also has the history between them. But MVD is just such an amazing player that he could definitely take that set. And the thing about MVD that's really good as well is, like, there's a lot of Snake players, almost every single top Snake player. You could point out, like, yeah, Apollo Kage, he's really good with grenades. He's really good with C4 or something. Maybe Kronos, his spacing's really good with, like, down tilt or something. I'm just making things up at this point. But, like, they're all things that, like, one Snake player is, like, clearly a little bit better at. MVD is years ahead of everyone else on Nikita, like light years. It's going to be Smash 7 before people even get close to current day MVD. He is so good with Nikita, it's actually unreal. And I think in the Fox matchup, that could be very helpful for him. So that could definitely turn in his favor. Still would favor Light, but I think MVD he has so much potential as a player that he could make that upset. Mars and Chase, I would probably favor Mars, especially considering that he would have to get to Quinn to get to Chase. So he is favored there. I think he's just good at the Palutena matchup, but Chase also has been showing a lot of promise recently. He just got that big upset over Riddles. That's a huge mental barrier. I guess not mental barrier, but just like getting a win of that top 15 player just shows, okay, I can do this, and maybe Mars is the next one to fall, but I would still favor Mars. Sonics and Quandale Dinglingleton, I'm going to favor Sonics here just because Sonics is really, really good. Zomba and Wrath, I'm going to favor Wrath. No offense versus Zomba, I just think Wrath is the best player in the world. That guy is so good. One of the best Sonics to ever do it. Him and Sonics, I'm going to be very excited to see them in this tournament. But I am going to favor Wrath here. And then Chase, Marvelous Marco, I probably would still favor Chase. I think it's pretty far in his favor as well. MVD, Capitancito, I would favor MVD. Wrath and Mr. E, well, I think it's going to be Zomba. But either way, I think both Zomba and Wrath would have a pretty good shot versus Mr. E. And then Quandale, Dinglingleton, and Void, or MVD, I guess, on the other side of the bracket. If it's honestly, both players, I think MVD has a better chance versus Quandale. Void, I think it's going to be really tough. I think those are just some hard matchups, but he definitely can figure it out. But I do probably think it's going to be Quandale. If any upsets are going to happen, it would probably be Wrath Zomba, just because Wrath is so good. And here we have our top 16. This Google Sheet was made, of course, by the lovely ICOOKIEMONSTERZ. Their stuff is in the description, as always, when we do these videos. And this is just the projected seeding. So I know we talked about a couple upsets that I think could happen, but this is just how this seed is going to be, so we can talk about every single player in the top 16 fair and square. Now, our first matchup in the winner's side is Tweak versus Jackal. Now, this is a really bad role for Jackal just because Tweak is a major threat in his region. They played a lot, and it is definitely within Tweak's favor. Next is Cosmos and Salt 1. Now, this is a matchup that's a little bit tough because these players have been going back and forth for a little bit. I do believe that Cosmos, or rather Salt 1, won the last time they played. I think it was at like Double Down, if I'm not mistaken. I could just be lying, though. But I would favor Cosmos here just because Cosmos' consistency has been impressing me a lot lately. He has been looking very good. 9th place at both Genesis and let's make big moves. And Salt 1 has also been looking pretty decent. He had that very good Frosty Faustings where he got 3rd place there. His Genesis run wasn't too bad. He just had a rough matchup in Acolyte in the loser side. I would think I'm going to favor Cosmos for this one, though, but this could go either way. Light Mars, kind of the same thing. These guys, they go back and forth. I am still going to favor Light, though, just because he has been doing very well recently. That Genesis run was amazing, but Mars also had an amazing Genesis run. So Cosmos Salt 1, that's a rivalry that could go either way. Light Mars, even more of a rivalry that could go even more any other way, because I don't know. Alright, sorry, my mic cut. Next up is Sonics and Zomba, and I am going to favor Sonics for this. Now, we do have to consider that if Zomba were to get here, he would have to be Wrath, which is very impressive. I don't think Wrath is quite at the caliber of Sonics anymore, even though Wrath is very, very good, so that's going to be a tough match for him. So he would have beaten another very good Sonic player, but I still think Sonics is just such a tough opponent to beat, especially against Rob. I think Sonic is like pretty good versus Rob. I mean, Sonic's pretty good versus like every single character, so I guess it's not that big of a deal, but I am still going to favor Sonics for this one. Onto the loser side, we have Justice versus Luis. Now, I think just in terms of the matchup, I think Luis is going to handle that one pretty well. I don't really know how much experience he has explicitly versus Midman, but I am still going to favor him for that. Kronos and Goblin, I'm going to favor for Kronos just because he has been very impressive to me lately, and I think Cosmos, or rather Kronos, is a player that could just explode this tournament. He has some very tough matchups ahead of him, but I think Kronos is really, really good. I do favor him, but Goblin is a player that is obviously amazing, so it could go either way. MVD and Chase. Now, this is Politate's Snake, but the Snake players just are figuring out their bad matchups, right? They're just like, it's Nest Snake, that's doable now. Samus Snake, yeah, that's doable now. Game & Watch Snake even, yep, that's doable. So I am going to put MVD for this one, but actually on paper it should be Chase just because that matchup is so heavily tilted in his favor, but Snake players don't really care about matchup charts anymore, and again, MVD is just a player that is so explosive that could do anything, but Chase is a massive up-and-comer that could definitely take that upset as well. Quandale and Wrath, we've already kind of talked about how good I think Wrath is. He is really, really, really good. I think he probably would be Quandale here, but we also haven't seen a ton of Wrath versus Steve just because Wrath hasn't really been playing when Steve has been like out, like a major problem. Now, he is in the same region as DD. I don't know how much experience he has against the character, so he could definitely get matchup check there, but I am still going to favor him here. First, loser's 9th match is Zomba and Luis, and I would favor Zomba here just because he's won the last 2 times that they've played, but also Luis has taken sets off Zomba, and all those sets have been very close, so it could go either way. Again, we'll be favoring Zomba just off that recency bias, but it's honestly, I'm not super confident about that pick. Now, Mars Kronos is a pick that I'm very confident against. I'm sorry, Kronos. Mars Snake is not it's not fun. It's not something that you ever want to play. That's a very, very tough draw for Kronos, unfortunately, so I do think Mars takes that. Now, Salt 1 MVD, kind of talked about this a little earlier with, speaking of Kronos and Salt 1. It's going to be, is this a Snake thing? Is this an Apollo Kage thing? I am still going to favor Salt 1 because I do think it is more of an Apollo Kage thing just because Apollo Kage is crazy, but I think MVD has a very good shot. I think if any of these upsets happen, it's 100% MVD. Jackal and Wrath, I think it is going to be Wrath just because Wrath is crazy. He is so good. I think Jackal has a shot as well. Jackal's obviously an incredible player, and when he, again, has momentum, he looks unstoppable, but Wrath is a player that sucks the momentum out of you. He just camps so well. You think Sonics is bad? Wait till you watch a Wrath match. Like, he is absolutely unreal, and I think he is going to be favored in there. For our winner semis matches, we have Tweak and Cosmos for the first one. I am going to favor Tweak here just because, 1, I watch Genesis, and 2, that is a very tough matchup for Cosmos. Every single character that he plays, it's pretty tough for. Like, Corrin doesn't do super well in it. Aegis doesn't do super well. Corrin might honestly be a better choice, but even then, his Aegis is much better than his Corrin, so I think Tweak is favored in that one. It's not a great matchup, and Tweak is also very, very good at it. Then we have Light and Sonics. I am going to favor Light here. I think Light's probably Sonic's biggest demon at this point, which is kind of crazy because, you know, he beat Leo, he beat Spargo. Even though Leo did beat him at Genesis, it was definitely doable. I also think Fox is one of Sonic's, like, few rough matchups. Like, not rough because it's still even, but maybe could be losing. I think Fox does very well in that one. I think Light is very good for Sonic, so I will be favoring him here. Now, Mars and Zomba. I do think that Mars takes that just because Mars, the way he plays, is he likes to repeat a lot of scenarios. He'll just force you to do the same things over and over and over again. He'll catch on what you're doing. And Zomba rolls a lot. Like, he just rolls a lot as a player. I think it's a Rob thing as well. Just like being in the corners, Rob's very scary because you're massive. You get hit a ton. And when you have center stage, you are so strong because you can kill anyone from literally anywhere. So I do think that Mars would be favored there. Now, Salt 1 Wrath. This one's a little bit interesting because usually when I look at Wrath, I just think he's going to win. Now, Salt 1 is actually in Wrath region, and he has a pretty good history versus him. So I am going to pick Salt 1. This is honestly probably the worst person that Wrath could have gotten in bracket. He just got super unlucky here. I think anyone else he probably gets to like Tweak or Light. Like Wrath is amazing. I think Salt 1's going to be favored there just because he has the match experience. He knows how to play against Wrath. But of course, it is not impossible for that upset to happen. Now for losers quarters, our first match is Cosmos and Mars, and I am going to say Mars for this one. This is pretty much no logic. I have no idea who's going to win this matchup. I don't think either characters does exceptionally well versus each other. They haven't played in, I think, like 3 years. They haven't played once post-quarantine, which is absolutely absurd because they're both amazing players. They're both showing similar levels of consistency. Like, they both got 9th place at Genesis. This could go either way. I'm just going to pick Mars because I assume if he gets to this far in the bracket, he's going to have an insane amount of momentum. Sonics and Salt 1. Now, I'm going to pick Salt 1 just because he would have to beat Wrath to get there. He's clearly good versus Sonic. That's huge drama. And also for content, of course. I think Sonics has a very good shot versus Salt 1. But I think of all the people in this bracket, Sonics' worst matchups are probably going to be Salt 1. Light, definitely his worst one. And then, like, maybe, like, honestly, you know, those are just his 2 worst matchups. I can't think of anyone else. Maybe Tweak as well, because I think Tweak would be pretty good versus Sonic, just that playstyle. But I think Salt 1 is going to be winning that one out. Now, on the winner side, we have Tweak versus Light, and I will be favoring Light here just because he has been winning it more times than not the last time they've been playing. Even though Tweak was able to take a set at Scuff, that was with the Sephiroth, and I don't think it's something that can happen again, at least easily. I think he can beat Light again with Sephiroth. I think he'd be more favored in Diddy Kong, and their matchup at Genesis was very close. Every time they play, it is very close. It could go either way, but Light has just been clutching it out more times than not again, so I am going to be favoring Light for this one. Now, Mars and Salt 1, they haven't played in a very long time, but I'm going to say that Mars wins it because when the further Mars gets into bracket, the scarier he becomes. That's kind of for like most players, to be honest, because they just get building momentum. But I think Mars is going to be favored here. Like, it could go either way. Honestly, not super confident him versus Cosmos. Not super confident about him versus Salt 1. But I'm pretty sure the last time they played, Mars did win it. So, hey, that means 100% Mars is going to win. Now, Tweak Mars, this is something I am confident in. Tweak should win that. He is very good versus Mars. But Mars was able to overcome a roadblock like 2 weeks ago versus DeBuzz. He was able to beat the Olimar, beat that. That was a massive roadblock because DeBuzz has been bodying him. Maybe this is the weekend where he figures out Tweak. It's not likely, the odds aren't in his favor, but it's not impossible. Mars is a very, very good player, and I think he could do it, but it will probably be Tweak. And then Light versus Tweak, I'll say that Tweak gets the reset, but Light overall does win the tournament, and I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If there's any players that I didn't talk about, please let me know down below. Be sure to go over how I think the run could be, what upsets they could make, as well as what you guys think of the top 16. This tournament's going to be pretty exciting. It's very, very tap heavy. Like, there's so many amazing players at it. You have like Light, Tweak, Sonic, those are all like top 5, 6 players. Like, it's going to be insane. Thank you for watching. Sport's been absolutely unreal lately. If you guys have any videos, please leave them down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.